Hello guys, welcome to all of you on our YouTube channel or website. Don't waste your time to check your steno script one by one for each error. Use our website www.stenoforall.com with auto checking facility or much more. All candidates are ready to write at a speed of 140 words per minute. This is our third dictation. All are ready to write? One awaits the fine print to assess the impact on consumers and smaller outlets. The plan to tax coconut oil as a personal care item at 18% for pack sizes below 1 liter and retain the 5% rate on edible oils for larger packs has been held back for study and will hopefully be shelved for good. These pluses and minuses aside, two things stand out for Indian consumers: the Council's firm dismissal of any shift of petroleum products to GST to lower the tax burden, and the fact that GST cess on automobiles, tobacco, and aerated drinks will now be levied till April 2026, not June 2022, as originally envisaged. While the council may have discussed petro products only briefly to comply with the Kerala High Court order, consumers who need some relief on fuel prices, irrespective of who cuts taxes, may have held misplaced hopes. If the government really wants a consumption rebound that may reignite private investments, the centre and states must begin talks on rationalising fuel taxes. The finance minister has been expressed the worry: what if we cut taxes and states do not? Perhaps a compact could be arrived at so both give up a little revenue to spur spending. A similar dialogue is needed for an honest review of the GST regime's progress and the way ahead. With just 9 more months of assured compensation for states, they are worried about revenue streams falling off the cliff thereafter. Their pleas for an extension in the compensation period have met with stern diffidence and the argument that GST revenues are below expectations. Two ministerial groups have been tasked to augment revenues using technology and rate rationalizations. The centre need not wait for their reports to hold a special council meeting to discuss states' compensation concerns as had been promised. At this juncture, the Council should be a forum for empathetic contemplation, not fractious friction. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had framed the September 20 parliamentary election as Canada's pivotal moment. 2 years into the 4 year term of his minority government, he dissolved parliament and called the snap election, hoping that Canadians would give him an absolute majority. However, Mr. Trudeau must be both relieved and disappointed with the preliminary results. His Liberal Party got the most seats in Parliament at 158, just one more than what they won in 2019 vote, but well short of a majority of 170 seats. To continue to stay in power, the Liberals will have to depend on smaller parties. The Conservatives, who, under the leadership of Erin O'Toole, took a moderate position on contentious issues from carbon tax to a ban on assault rifles, failed to make any gain. His plan was to reach out to the voters beyond the Conservative base and take on the Liberals on policy specifies rather than on ideology. They secured 119 seats, down from 121 in 2019, while the centre-left New Democrats, led by Jagmeet Singh, won 25 seats, one more than in the last vote. The Bloc Québécois, which backs Quebec independence, took 34 seats, a gain of 2. Mr. Singh, whose party backed Mr. Trudeau's minority government after the 2019 election, has hinted that he would continue to support the Liberals. Mr. Trudeau, son of the former Liberal Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau, took over the party's reins in 2013 at a time when the Liberal prospects were dim. But a young Mr. Trudeau not only revived the Liberal Party but also led it to a surprise election victory in 2015. He has remained the most influential voice in Canada's political landscape. In 2019, he secured victory but without an absolute majority, which forced him to seek the support of the New Democrats. Poll members of the Liberals soared after the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. By calling the snap election, Mr. Trudeau's plan was to turn those numbers into actual votes and win a fresh 4-year term with a clear majority. But the decision to call a midterm election was controversial. His rivals called him a political opportunist who had pushed the country into an expensive election of 600 million. It is the most expensive in its history in the midst of the COVID scare. Voter turnout at 58.44% was the lowest ever. In the end, the voters backed Mr. Trudeau's government but stopped short of endorsing his political gamble. Having led the party to 3 back-to-back victories, he is the undisputed leader of the Liberals. He should focus on the art of coalition politics, finding common ground with the New Democrats for his progressive legislative agenda and providing stable governance to tackle Canada's myriad problems from the COVID challenge to the climate crisis. Inflation for the last 4 months has been worryingly high. Wholesale price index has been above 10% and consumer price index crossed the 6% mark in June, which was above the Reserve Bank of India's tolerance band. This is happening at a time when demand has been down, unemployment has been high, many have lost incomes and poverty has aggravated. So, why is there high inflation and does the official data capture the real picture? In April and May 2020, data on production and prices could not be collected due to the strict lockdown. Unlock had gradually started in June and July 2020, but normalcy had not returned. So, the current data on prices for April to July 2021 are not comparable with the same months of 2020. As such, the official inflation figures for these months in 2021 do not reflect the true picture. Anyway, a single number for inflation is an aggregate across different commodities and services. The price rise differs for different items of consumption. So, the single number is arrived at by assigning weights to different commodities and services. For WPI, the weights in production are used. For CPI, the consumption basket is used. But people are not homogeneous. The consumption basket is vastly different for the poor, the middle classes and the rich. Hence, the CPI is different for each of these classes and a composite index requires averaging the baskets. So, in a sense, it represents none of the categories. During lockdown and unlock in 2020, people largely consumed essentials. RBI data show that consumer confidence fell drastically from 105 in January 2020 to 55.5 by January 2021. That means even when the economy started to grow efficiently, consumer confidence had not recovered. Employment and incomes were still down, and according to one report, 230 million lived below the poverty line. All this implies that the consumption basket for different sections of the population had changed. While the consumption pattern of the well-off sections may have changed little, the poor and middle classes, especially those who lost jobs and incomes, would have had to cut back on their consumption. Thus, the weights in the CPI would have changed and inflation required recalculation. But this has not been done. Consumer confidence was down to 48.6 in July 2021 due to the impact of the second wave of COVID-19. According inflation data underrepresents services in the consumption basket. In production, services are about 55% of the GDP but have no representation in WPI and about 40% in CPI. We know that health costs shot up during the pandemic, but is this captured in inflation figures? Similarly, education costs soared with the requirement of mobile phones, laptops and Wi-Fi. Many services were not used. Eating out and travel, for instance, should have been factored out. In brief, the shock of lockdowns was not only made data collection difficult, but the consumption of basket for calculating CPI should have been changed. Inflation pinches the pockets of the consumer. If the rate of inflation is 10%, then compared to the previous year, a person has to spend 10% more to buy the same amount of things. If the person's income also rise by 10%, inflation does not matter. But if the person's income rise by less than 10%, their budget gets impacted adversely. For the middle classes, both consumption of less essential items and savings get reduced. But the poor, who hardly save, have to curtail essential consumption. In India, 95% work in the unorganized sector and mostly can earn low incomes and have little savings. By definition, they cannot bargain for higher incomes as price rise and get hit by inflation. Further, due to the lockdowns, the wages of many declined both in unorganized and organized sectors. This has impacted their family budgets. This is our